Corey here, Driveway Demons. And what's the most notorious thing Mustangs are known for, besides plowing into crowds of people? Well, of course, it's the longest running production car in the history of mankind. Finally got Kyle out here with his 2017 Mustang GT, but this is no regular Mustang GT. He has slammed an RTR wheels. He also has air raid cold air intake, full Corsa catback, a tune, Mishimoto coolant reservoir, and he's also got a car lock device, full sponsorship from Carlock. Now, this Mustang sounds absolutely badass. There's no word to put it except this thing is badass. Now, what we're gonna do here is we are gonna go for a beautiful drive, and I'm gonna review this car because Kyle is actually going to let me drive his monstrous Mustang, which I'm gonna tell you is pushing at least 500 horsepower. And where we've come up with this number is they do about 435. They're slightly underrated, and you've got a colder intake, an exhaust, and a tune, which puts them right on the 480, 500 range, and maybe a little more, but I would say he's right up there at 500. If you want to see Kyle race me, I'll put that link up there in the YouTube card. It'll pop up above my head right now. It's a really awesome run. He did pretty good for a Mustang. Keep in mind, though, I do have 800 horsepower. So the Mustang is a fantastic vehicle. It's nothing but pure badassery. I love Mustangs. I had 3 of them, one of which was a GT500. So let's get in this car. Let's take it for a spin. The Mustangs come stock with 435 horsepower, 400 foot-pound of torque. They got the independent rear suspension. He's also got the MMD V-Series spoiler, which sets this car off beautifully. And I love the aerodynamics and the splitter. And I already can tell you right now it's gonna handle great because the new Mustangs are set up for road courses versus drag strips. This car, bone stock, will run high 12s, 12.7, 12.8, 12.9, maybe a 13 flat, depending on who's driving it. But with the mods he's got, he should be in the mid to low 12s. I'd put him in the 12.3, 12.4 range, but it's more geared towards handling and a road course. So here we go, we're driving the 5.0. Now, a lot of you guys might ask me, hey, how does it feel compared to a Challenger or a Charger? Well, the torque down low isn't as good, of course, because it only makes about 400 foot-pounds versus the 475 of the Charger and Challenger, or the 650 foot-pounds of the Hellcat. So if you're coming from the old 3-valve engine, this car makes more torque, considerably more torque, and you can feel the difference. But Ford did things differently than Chrysler did. And the difference is between the cars is this car makes its power in the high revs. The 5.0 Mustang lives in the 6,000, 6,500 range, or even higher versus, you know, the Camaro and the Charger Challenger engines, them all being right around 5,500, 5,700 before you're getting ready to shift. This will do about 1,000 more RPM. This is also a dual overhead cam, so it likes to breathe higher and rev faster. It lives in the high revs. 32-valve dual overhead cam, completely different setup than a Hemi or, you know, an LS7, LS3, LS1. It's a completely different animal. So the wheelbase in the S550 that we're in right now is identical to the old S197 platform, 107.1 inches. So you'd think that because it has the same wheelbase, it wouldn't handle any better. but they couldn't be so wrong if they thought that, because the independent rear and the way they have this car, you know, stabilized and set up, the suspension is just phenomenal. The car handles better than any S197 I've ever driven, and I've owned 3 of them. So I will tell you, Kyle owned an 08. Yep. He owned an 08, and he's even told me stories about how much better this car is handling, even bone stock before he lowered it, than his 08 was, even with aftermarket suspension. So this car is a totally different animal. If you have any Mustang before 2015, even if you have the 5.0 engine, yeah, you got the same power as the, you know, the 15. So you got a 14 or 13, you have the same power as a 15, but the handling on a 15 will be better. The wheelbase in the Charger's 120 inches, Challenger's 116, Mustang's 107. So theoretically, on paper, you would think that the Mustang would lose some handling credentials against the Challenger and the Charger due to its lack of almost 10 inches of wheelbase on the Challenger and over 13 inches or so on the Charger. That is not the case. The car handles as good as the Challenger and Charger, and in its own way, can handle better in certain circumstances because the rear end is so much lighter. So when you're going around a corner, like I'm doing now, if I was to go faster, the rear end on the Mustang would brake a little bit more than the Charger and Challenger, giving you a little bit more of a turn in. So it would actually feel like it's cornering better. You just have to be easy on the gas because these cars like to rev and make power out of nowhere. The power band just comes in, and if you're whipping too hard, it will fishtail because it's so light.
As you saw in the burnout video.
Yeah, in the burnout video, yep. These cars the power comes on more quickly than it would be in a Challenger or Charger because the torque is there in a Hemi right immediately in the low end grunt. Whereas this car, it starts to make it up as it revs, and once you get in the high RPM, it just starts making all kinds of power, so you have to be ready for that. So it's not that this car is slower, like some people might ask me or want to know, hey, is it slower? It's not necessarily about that. It's how the car makes power. This car makes it in the high RPM, which if you ask me, that makes a lot of sense to make the power up high, because when you're shifting and you go down into the next gear, you want to be in the power band. And every time you shift gears in the Mustang, you're right in the power band. So it handles really good. I'll let you guys hear it a little bit. Not gonna go too crazy. So you can hear by the grunt, there's a certain feeling you get. With the Challenger and Charger, you get a certain feeling, and in this car, you get a certain feeling, just like every car. If you're driving a Camaro, a Mustang, Charger, Challenger, every car has characteristics. They're like people. Cars have personality. They have big personality. And this car's personality is a fun driving experience. And we're not even getting on it, and just the growl, and you can see I'm turning in right now and the car is planted. Granted, Kyle does have the car lowered. He does have a tune, intake, and an exhaust, so he's pushing about 500 or 480. He's like real high. I would say he's gotta be up in the high fours, reaching 5. And I'm just gonna slow down a little bit, giving us some room because we have grandparents driving in front of us. So here we go, gonna get on it one time here, got some room. Whoa, my God. Whew.
That blanket wasn't too happy.
My God, this car moves. And it's not just that, it's that we went right over that hill, and as soon as we hit the hill, the car stayed planted. Most cars would want to bounce a little bit. This car did not bounce. It went over the hill and it was just stuck to the asphalt. So yeah, this car handles absolutely phenomenally. It's tight. This car ain't going nowhere. Like I said, just don't hammer the gas. Don't get up in the high RPM, and don't whip the rear too hard. It will brake on you. But other than that, this car is a driver's car. This is not in any way similar to the S197. It's a whole different chassis and oh yeah, whole different chassis, whole different platform, whole different ball game. Listen to the downshifts. It just growls. Oh my God, it's so nice. I'm not gonna lie when I say 100% truth here that the Corsa on this car sounds so good that even the Charger and Challenger don't sound as good. This has a different sound, and you cannot replicate it because it's not just the exhaust setup that makes this sound. Ford's Mustang, the 5.0, has a certain firing order, and the firing order on an engine actually depicts what your exhaust will sound like for the most part. So you're not going to have an exhaust that sounds like a Mustang unless you drive a Mustang. Even in a low RPM, I'm not even getting on it. Just puts a smile on my face just listening to the exhaust tone. Oh.
All these slow drivers, come on.
Yeah, I know, right? This car wants to fly, and yet we have grandparents in front of us. The gearing in this car, too, I didn't mention this yet, but the gearing in this car is significantly better than the S197. What do you have in here, like 373?
373s. It's the performance pack one.
Nice, thank God.
I love these gears.
The 355s are
Way
too
long.
Yeah, way too long.
And the 410s are too short.
Yeah, I have 410s in mine. Yep, I agree. They are way too f***ing short. Kyle has 373s in here, so it's the performance pack, so it's a lot better than 355s, that's for sure. Just love that sound. I can't get over it, Kyle. Listen to that. You're used to it, but
I love it.
God,
It
it's...
never gets old, ever.
I have to say this, it is f***ing badass. Like, that sound just... You could be a person who has no appreciation for cars, and you would get a f***ing boner listening to this car. There's no way you would not. This is what American muscle is all about. You can see it just hugs the corners. Watch how it handles these corners when I downshift. And as you can see, Kyle's got the flat bottom custom steering wheel. Sponsorships are starting to come in for Kyle. That guy was a little close. So as you can see, I just downshifted. I'm gonna go into the turn, and it just hugs. Watch how it hugs this turn. I can stay right on the inside white line effortlessly, and we're doing almost 50 miles an hour. You would never get this kind of handling out of an S197 that was pretty much bone stock. Like, look at the handling here. That right there is just pure badassery. Right, Kyle?
It's pretty great.
Well, I remember driving in my Shelby GT 500, and let me tell you what, that live axle in the old S197...
Scary. They are scary.
They are, yes, they are scary, Kyle. They're nuts because you don't want to be going around corners like this with a live axle.
You hit a bump and you're dead.
Yeah, you hit bumps and the car hops and skips.
This happened to me numerous times.
Oh my God, this car handles, and I feel planted. You can feel it. Ford have done such an amazing job on the suspension.
I guess.
It really wants to go. So we've been in the car now for an hour, and I've been just putting it through its paces, probably scaring Kyle a little bit. But I waited to near the end to say this, and what I'm about to say is the 100% truth. This is probably the best handling Mustang I've ever been in. It's not because he lowered it, it's just the S550 is that damn good. So I convinced Kyle to do a 0 to 60. I'm getting ready to start it off right now, so here we go. 1, 2, go. 60. You did about 4.7. Oh, that sounds good. That sounds so good. And I would say that Kyle's definitely in the mid-12s. Oh, Pop-alicious back there. Just don't get too crazy. We don't want to hit a tree. You don't want to have body roll when you're doing 40 miles an hour on a curve. It's not ideal. You know, tires play a very big factor as well. The thing is, though, with a live axle, is you can only go so far before the axle you're stretching doesn't go any further. You got a live axle and one side's pulling against the other, you only have so much movement. But with the independent rear, each side of the car can independently suspend itself over bumps and turns, and the suspension can adjust. The thing that makes the S550 so spectacular and such a dream to drive that high revving American grunt right there. Like I said, Kyle's been doing 60 mile an hour through a very low speed zone here. I'm gonna be honest, this is one of the most fun vehicles I've ever been in, whether I'm riding shotgun or Kyle's giving me the keys to his baby to pound on. It really doesn't matter. It's such a fun time. This car is so great. What is this guy doing? Look what this guy's doing. Look, I'll show you.
Please turn. Oh, thank God.
Oh, he finally turned. What do you know? Back to the review. This car is safe to drive around corners really quickly, as you can see from the video. Kyle, you are nuts, brother. You are nuts. So we're looking at the features of the 5.0, and before we look at any other features, I just want to point out that yes, this Mustang does have a trunk release button down here. Right, Kyle? Finally.
Oh, God.
Yeah, he had an 08, it didn't have that. So of course you got your tack right there, which winds out all the way to 7,000 plus. So here's the features of the car. You got your air-fuel ratio, you know, you got your inlet air temperature, your oil temp, voltage, some really cool features that most of their Mustangs didn't have. Your distance to empty, your tire pressure, and some really cool stuff, voltage, cylinder head temperature. That's a pretty cool one, cylinder head temperature. I don't have that on the Hellcat. Yeah, we're in the main menu here. You have your gauge mode, fuel and trip meter. You have track apps, driver assist, main settings. The gauge modes is what we were actually just in. The trip and fuel, that's self-explanatory. Track apps, and then of course settings. I'm sure you can go in here and change different things on your vehicle. Basic info center right here from Ford with all the controls. I love the start stop engine button being there versus being over here where you cannot see it. So actually Ford actually got that right too. Gotta love the America right here.
Placard.
And he's got the Mustang placard right there. Beautiful. Longest running production car if you didn't know. And he's got the oil pressure and the vacuum gauge up there. Evil demonic shifter. It goes with the car channel, Driveway Demons, and you have like a demonic shifter.
I love it.
I love the feeling of the shifter.
It's
it
heavy
fits.
too.
It's got that heavy, it's stiff,
Yeah.
and it's hard to explain the feeling of the car, but
Yeah.
it really wants to go. It's got the torque, but you can tell that the car wants to rev. The Mustang 5.0 GT is a piece of American history. It has been produced for over 50 years without a break in production, since 1964. 64 and a half was the first Mustang. This is a driver's car. It handles great, the seats grab you, it hugs the curbs, and the exhaust note is spectacular. Of course, he has an aftermarket exhaust that sounds downright badass. The car handles, it's got the power, but more importantly, it's an American muscle car, and it feels a lot different than a Charger, Challenger, or Camaro. This is definitely the best handling Mustang, and I've had many of them. And coming from a Hellcat, I can say this car is a ton of fun to drive. Thank you so much to Kyle for letting me drive it. It is just a beast. We're talking about a mid 12-second Mustang that will take the corners, that was designed for a track. And it would probably take the solid rear GT500 in a road course any day. If you are looking for the best bang for buck, or you're out for a muscle car or an American-made vintage reproduction car, or if you're just looking for yourself and you're between $25,000 and $35,000, this is the car to get, especially if you're looking for a muscle car. It is just amazing what Ford has done with their high revving V8, with their 5.0, their dual overhead cam engine definitely puts out the power, and it sounds different than any other muscle car ever, as you can tell by the video and how it sounded while we're reviewing it. But I appreciate Kyle letting me drive it. I absolutely had so much fun. Check out his Instagram. I'm gonna put it right down there in the bottom of the screen. Don't forget to share this channel with all your friends and everyone. I have a Genesis Coupe Turbo and a V6 review coming up as well. So a ton of stuff coming, guys. Don't forget to subscribe, share the channel. I'm Corey with Driveway Demons. See you on the next video. Have fun and be safe.